On behalf of the board and staff of the Marin Interfaith Council, welcome to our 20th annual prayer breakfast. My name is Reverend Scott Quentin, Executive Director of the Marin Interfaith Council. It's my joy to welcome each of you, whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever you believe. We welcome you and are so glad you're here this morning as we celebrate the National Day of Prayer, which is observed nationally on the first Thursday in May. We're a little bit ahead of things here in Marin, so we're celebrating on the first Wednesday in May. And also it's a little different. In many places this is solely a Christian observance. But of course we're happy to acknowledge people of every faith, and though no prescribed faith is together, we create a safe, respectful space for diversity of people and perspectives. So thank you all for coming today and bringing the fullness of who you are. You're most welcome, and we're joyful to have you with us. So today we also acknowledge our pagan and Wiccan friends who are observing Beltane, remembering our Jewish friends who observe Yom Kippur, being at sunset today. And of course we hold in our hearts people around the world, particularly in San Diego, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, recent places that have once again experienced violence in their places of worship. So what can we do in the wake of such unrelenting violence and hate? How can we respond? What you are doing today by your very presence is a bold response, as together we celebrate our unity and our diversity, our similarities and our differences. We're coming together today to listen, to learn, to understand, to be inspired, and to expand our capacity to welcome those who are different than we are, and find together, through our common humanity, a celebration of just how kaleidoscopically diverse this creation is that we get to enjoy together. So thank you for doing that sacred work of love with us today. So as we begin, a couple of housekeeping items. Many of you have these strange otherworldly devices that really have no purpose for the next hour or so. So you can either let them take a nap, go totally to sleep, whatever they want to do, you can ask them, but they don't need to do any work right now. They need to rest, so I invite you to do that. The bathrooms are just out this door and to the left, so restrooms are that way. And a couple of thank yous. So today we're particularly grateful for our ongoing partnership with our host congregation called Shafar. This is our 9th year in a row to be here, so thank you. We want to thank Manji and Nash for our catering. And I also want to have a moment of gratitude for our MIC board members. So if you're one of our board members, if you would please rise. And also our volunteers. If you're one of our MIC volunteers, if you would please rise. And also a special thank you to all our donors and supporters. MIC would not exist without you. So anyone who's been a financial supporter of MIC at any point, will you please rise and be part of this. And finally, I would love to thank our people for whom all of this is really their work, their great joy. My two co-workers. First of all, I want to thank Ashley Reed. Where's Ashley? There she is. Ashley. Both a great joy and a sorrow, because she will soon be graduating from seminary and spreading her wings to fly on to some new adventure. And so we wish her all of that and send her with our love and deep gratitude. And biggest thank you today to Janice Enick, my friend and partner in crime that Ashley and I both love and get to work with every day. Without whom none of this would happen. So biggest thank you to Janice. And now I'd like to invite our host, Rabbi Paul Steinberg of Congregation Kol Shafar, to come up and lead our opening prayer.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. So wonderful. What an honor to have all of you here this morning. It's a really incredible relationship. My colleague, Rabbi Susan Leiter, could not be here this morning because she is on a 6-month sabbatical. And I just want you to know that I'm not in the least bit jealous. In offering a prayer, I've got to just first tell you one thing about grammar. One thing about grammar. I know some of you probably miss it since seminary. In Hebrew, every blessing, they're typically one-liners, goes something like this. Blessed are you, God, our God, ruler of the universe, who does something. In the case of food, who brings forth bread from the earth. God who forgives. Our God who heals. Our God who listens to our prayers. You see, that grammar, God is in the predicate. God is not the subject. God is not the healer. God is one who heals. My teacher, Rabbi Harold Schulweis, would say you focus on the predicate because we may not be able to comprehend everything about God, but we can comprehend godliness through action. Focus on the godliness because it's through those actions that we can partner with the divine. We can actually embody God's will through those acts of godliness. In this time, in this place, where the world is so divided, people are so filled with chaos inside. People are afraid. They're uncertain. There's epidemics of mental health, gun violence all over, and a lot of people feel all alone in the world. I want to bless us all. I want to pray together with you that we can focus, teach, preach, model as best we can on godliness. Where healing is absent, may we be ones who bring healing. Where prayers are said, may we be ones who listen to prayers. Where forgiveness is absent, may we be ones who bring forgiveness. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Steinberg. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you the Reverend Bethany Nelson, who is a pastor at Westminster Presbyterian Church here in Tibetan and president of the Marin Interfaith Council's Board of Directors.
It's good to see you. It's good to be with you today. Scott wanted me to talk very briefly, he said, about why I love MIC. I can't do that very briefly. So instead, what I wanted to tell you is how I first got involved with MIC. It was probably, I was trying to remember, maybe 9 or 10 years ago. I came to MIC because I, at that time, was really interested in seeing how we could get more young people involved in interfaith work. And so I worked with a few others at the time, and what came about then was a gleaning day for middle and high school youth at Green Gulch Zen Center and Farm. We thought maybe it'd be a one-time thing, see how it went, and it went great. And it has since become an annual event that I think we're now maybe in the 6th or 7th or 8th year of meeting together in the fall and gleaning at Green Gulch. And that was my entrance into MIC, and after that I couldn't help but become more involved, because what I noticed about MIC is that this is an organization that really lives out its mission. I mean, we know organizations all over the places that have mission statements that kind of, maybe sit in a corner and get dusty. But MIC is serious about building community and celebrating faith traditions and advocating for justice. And so as I got to know more about the organization, I couldn't help but become more involved and support all that MIC does. So whether this is your first MIC event or whether you come to everything, I want to welcome you. I thank you for your support. One of the best ways you can support this organization is by showing up to events like this today. If you're not a part of our email newsletter, I encourage you to sign up for that and just take a look at the many events that MIC sponsors or co-sponsors and get involved. Now, just a little while ago, Scott asked you to stand if you'd ever been a financial supporter of MIC. And my goal is that next year, everyone will stand, because guess what? We have given you an opportunity today to be a financial supporter of MIC. There are these little envelopes on your table. We are very careful stewards of our money at MIC. We try to keep a very lean budget, but it is your financial support that keeps us going. So if you do feel moved today or any other day to make a financial gift to MIC, know that your gift will be put to use in the best of ways. So either today or another time, we do appreciate your financial support as well as your in-person support at MIC events. So again, thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
Thank you, Bethany. So the tradition of these prayer breakfasts is that part of it is it's really a time to experience prayer, inspiration, meditation perspectives, real-world practices from different faith traditions from around Marin County. And it's also to fulfill that part of the mission Bethany talked about, to build community, and to do that around the table by getting to know each other and our different perspectives. So some of you know the folks around your table pretty well. And for some of you, there are people at your table you've never met before. Whichever is the case, this is going to be a time to listen and understand. So what we're going to do is have a chance to have a conversation at our tables. You might want to have a group conversation with several people at your table, or you might want to just talk one-on-one with the person next to you. It's totally your choice. If you look on your table, there are little yellow sheets of paper. And these are just suggested topics. These are suggested topics for your conversation. And you'll notice the 3 questions on your page. What does interfaith mean to you and why is it important? Share a memorable experience you've had with a person or group outside your faith tradition. What will bring an end to acts of repression and violence against the religious other? open your minds to receive what is familiar and comforting, and to hold with gentle openness what is new, what is unfamiliar, something that you may not agree with. That's why we're here, to listen to each other with deep respect. And if anything you hear causes a little bit of a tightness in your chest or your tummy, that's perfectly normal. It's what happens when we're faced with something that we're not familiar with. So it's our human way of dealing with that. And I invite you to simply notice it, just be with it, and be kind to yourself and with each other as we engage in this type of listening and dialogue and connection, holding everything today with compassion with an open heart. So today we're going to hear from three faith leaders, Rabbi Shreibman, Professor of World Religion at Dominican University, Reverend Susan Shannon, Tibetan Buddhist Interfaith Minister and Chaplain at San Quentin, and Father Thomas Bonacci, Executive Director of the Interfaith Peace Project. So I'll introduce each speaker, and then I'll act as timekeeper so that neither they nor you have to worry about timing, and we'll just be able to sit back and enjoy our three faith leaders. So our first speaker is Rabbi Henry Shreibman, a longtime friend of the Marin Interfaith Council. Rabbi Shreibman is a faculty member at Dominican University since 2005, an assistant professor of religion and philosophy. He's also a visiting professor at CSU Sonoma State, where he helped start their Jewish Studies program in 2010. His academic focus is at the juncture of comparative ancient ethics, philosophy, and wisdom literature, the synergy of the Greco-Roman period in Israel with the rise of early Christianity, and the evolution of anti-Semitism. So pretty small in scope. He's been an active member in the Interfaith Multicultural Visioning and worked for over 40 years in the U.S., England, and Israel. And in 2008, he was awarded Teacher of the Year at Dominican University as an adjunct professor. He earned his PhD, Master in Philosophy and MA from Columbia University in New York in Comparative Ancient Religions and Literatures. He's an ordained rabbi since 1981 from the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College. And in 2013, he was appointed Dominican University's Director of Torch Leadership Programs and Retention Services, teaching leadership and assisting students of diverse backgrounds to become campus leaders and successful during their college years and after. Last year, he received the Faculty Club Advisor of the Year Award for the university with these words: "He is loud and proud and always an advocate for the students, offering both a supportive shoulder and tough love when necessary." So we're very glad to have him today as he brings his wisdom, humor, and passion to share with us. Please welcome Rabbi.
And my sainted mother thanks him for reading every single word. Thank you for coming to my bar mitzvah. I've come to believe that Jewish prayer has more questions than answers. What I want to do in this brief moment, 18 minutes of it, is try to guide you into a different universe. It's different for most Jews, and therefore it's probably different for most Christians, Muslims, and people of just about every faith. I think pagans and Wiccans probably understand this the best, interestingly enough. You and I hear in a synagogue the emphasis upon Shabbat prayer. The key prayers where we approach God, there are 8 of them. In other words, Judaism structures its prayer around 3 concepts. Hodaya, can I acknowledge my existence? Todah, thanks for putting me in this existence. And then at the end, it squeaks in Bakasha, the petitionary prayer that you and I normatively assume prayer is about. Dear God, help me. Agree? Right? You think of the petitionary side of prayer. Yet 2/3 of Jewish prayer structured 2,000 years ago under Roman oppression, preceded by Greek oppression and Persian. They kept their idealistic core in their hearts and said, if I don't say, page one, in the Hebrew direction, it's good for you, The whole Islamic world reads in this direction, as well as the 14 million or so Jews. So find page 1, moving from the right to the left. You and I don't start with petitionary prayer. Share with each other, be nice. With Modeh Ani Lefanecha, I am grateful for existing, dear God. And it's one of the few locations where Judaism's prayers are functioning in the first person singular. I dare say most of you pray to God as an individual. Is that accurate? Yes or no? Yes. Judaism prays in the plural. As the Rabbi said, Adonai Eloheinu, our God. Malkeinu, our leader. Zachrenu, our memory. Everything ends with a new ending. So just as a mnemonic, when Jews go, nu? Well, let's try that again, everybody. When Jews go, nu, it's the plural, first person plural, in which we pray. Now here's why. You and I envision prayer from the Rockwell of praying by a bedside, kneeling like this. Agreed? Petitionary prayer, Jesus and I, God and I, whoever and I. But Islam and Judaism share a very close relationship, that it's about what we do as a group, not as much what we feel as individuals. Now there's the tension that you were talking about. Judaism, I believe, has more questions than answers. And therefore, when it structures prayer, it's trying to guide you and I in daily prayer about what the tensions will be in life today. And not to be dissuaded. It gives us a vision, if you'll go backwards, to a page that has a hey on it. You should learn one Hebrew letter a day. Hey. Can you say hey? Hey. Okay. I knew we would have some success. New. The plural ending. So now you found yourself on a page that at the top corner in the grid says 47. Do you see it? Excellent. So if you look, these are the 19 blessings that are in daily Jewish prayer. I dare say most of our Jews that come to our synagogues regularly see the Shabbat prayer, and for those of you who are Christian and actually read the New Testament, that's why they have a rabbi teaching the Synoptic Gospels at Dominican. No gentle Jesus, I. The prayers are very clear. There are 7 or 8 prayers. When we get to the petitionary part called the Amidah, the standing prayer, it's all poetic. It's all talking about the essence of the feeling of Shabbat, which is gentle, where you shut out the darkness of the world and feed your neshama yetera, the extra soul that you feel in a church, that you feel in a mosque, that you feel anywhere in the universe, is what Jews are trying to recapture. But there are 19 blessings in daily prayer. And look at the way they are structured. It's the need. This was stylized 2,000 years ago. The need for good weather and ecology. Is it a problem? Yes. Nothing changed. The need for Cherut, freedom. You see the number 10 prayer? You see it? Yes. The need for freedom. Would you read number 11? No hyperbole on Shabbat. You multiply the praise for God, that you and I can escape for 24 hours the responsibility of fixing a broken world. But we pray for good leadership. We don't dismiss the leadership. We don't upbraid the leadership. We fix the leadership. And then, this was the hardest part of this prayer book for me to write, because I wrote it originally for children. The need to take a stand against evil. Because some people are part of the solution, and some just ain't. And therefore, the rugged realism of daily prayer is a call to action. The need to acknowledge right after the goodness in Jerusalem. It's a vision of a hope where people can behave. The need to have hope. Are you with me? Yes. And even 16, Shema Kolenu. Toward the end it says, maybe these prayers aren't working. Maybe you're not listening. And the rabbis seem to have had a faith that if God is not listening, maybe that society is. And maybe these structures and these hooks of where problems exist are categories you'll take on today in daily prayer. So, more questions than answers. Rabbi Acha in the Jerusalem Talmud, again, I'm sort of contrarian today. Everyone knows the Babylonian Talmud. Jews are very creative in their diasporas. The Jerusalem Talmud is that big. Stop it. The Jerusalem Talmud is that big. And there's a great little one-liner. A new prayer should be said every day. Do me a favor. Make a new prayer today. Rabbi Acha. Turn with me for the conclusion of our prayer service on page 51. You're going from right to left. Those of you over here are going to whisper what's in parentheses. Those of you over here are going to say the main prayer. We're going to be the Kavanah in the box. Prayer 12, when no one else, you see where I am? When no one, are you with me? This side, you're going to whisper parentheses. The need to take a stand against evil. Amal Shemim. We begin. When no one else is ready to take a stand against what is wrong in our world, may I whisper. May I have the strength. May I have the timing. May I have the wisdom. May I have the courage. Together, to stand up and say, no. If I don't, who will? If I do, I'll be a true leader. Baruch atah Adonai, shover oivim umachnia zevim. May evil in this world be crushed and finish off all unkindness. However, on page 50, let's go back and forth with me. In the Kavanah, number 11. We're all leaders. Your turn. In our world of school. In the world of adults. There are people who sometimes help make things better. Solutions. And there are people who sometimes make things not work at all. Together, may I be a person who works to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. Then I will be a true leader. And making you all much more comfortable with the Babylonian Talmud, at the bottom, page 50, in a place where there is no leader, try to make yourself one. Amen. Amen. Fix this broken world, will you?
So our next speaker is Reverend Susan Shannon, who is a seeker, student, Dharma student, teacher, earth and animal steward, and devotee of the heart. Susan has been a student and practitioner of Tibetan Buddhism for 45 years. and has studied with many of Tibet's greatest teachers here and abroad. She has worked among diverse populations all her life in varying capacities, including Tibetan refugees, the homeless, the differently abled, at-risk youth, and the incarcerated. She was ordained as an interfaith minister by the Chaplaincy Institute for Arts and Interfaith Ministries in 2011. Yay! And she went on to complete a Master's of Divinity from the Star King School for the Ministry in 2012, with the focus of serving marginalized and oppressed communities. Since ordination, her ministry has focused on prison chaplaincy projects and transformational programs at San Quentin State Prison, including working with the renowned Guiding Rage into Power program and providing Buddhist chaplaincy on death row. Her work is rooted in the principles of restorative justice and emotional literacy, fostering interconnectedness and healthy community engagement. Please welcome Reverend Susan Shannon.
I'm really happy to be standing in front of you all today. I first came to MIC back in 2007 or 2008, I think it was, and I began to intern under Paul Gaffney, thank you, in the street chaplaincy program. And at the time I was pretty convinced that that was where my ministry was going to stay, but it shifted. So I would like to take my time today to tell you a little bit about my work. So we start every group in the prison with this kind of grounding. And as you can tell, it's non-threatening, it's non-denominational, it's inclusive, and it works. You can feel the energy in the room settled right away. I think that this is really an important part of bringing peace to our communities, is remembering what it feels like when the energy is settled and when we're united in the space of our hearts together. Because when we're united in the space of our hearts, there is no separation in our God, in our beliefs, and what connects us. And when one of us is disconnected, we all feel it. And when one of us is disconnected, it's easier for us to feel responsible for that disconnection rather than blame that person and to bring that person back into the circle. Remember, breathing, feeling your heart, feeling connected. This is us. This is just us. This is restorative, just us. And that is the base of my work in the prison. And I am very grateful. As Scott said in my introduction, I've been a very devoted practitioner of Tibetan Buddhism for 45 years now. And that's stunning to say because it means I'm getting quite old. But it's really my journey into interfaith work, interfaith education, interfaith seminary that gave me the language to fully express what the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism have taught me. And as I went into a prison shortly after, or actually before graduating with my MDiv, but having already been ordained, I was full of interfaith. I was ready to work my interfaith chops. And I realized right away that that was a good thing, and that the very word interfaith also created an other. We have an interfaith meditation group. Well, what about people with no faith? What about people whose faith is broken? What about people who really feel like their church is on the basketball court, so they don't feel like they have any faith because it doesn't involve an icon that others recognize? So, interfaith, no faith, heart-based, then everyone's invited. As I've traveled this journey, And now I'm a CPE supervisor and work with a lot of other chaplains. And I have found so much separation between the brain and the heart in this field of spirituality as well. And the three words that I keep coming back to are connection, interconnection, and disconnection. And if you think about for yourself where you feel interconnected, where you feel disconnected, and come back to a place where you feel connected, that's the place that we came to when we breathed together. And working in the prison, every one of the men that I work with is disconnected. They're disconnected from society. They're disconnected from their families. Usually, they were disconnected from safety, from love, from even nourishment at a very, very young age, often as soon as they popped out of their mamas. They had no hope to survive. The 8 words that are core to the GRIP program are hurt people, heal people, heal people. So every day that we drive past San Quentin, it's very easy to point the finger and other. These are the bad guys. But they have been so badly hurt that at one point they could not hold that hurt any longer, and they committed an offense. They committed violence, usually after years of committing violence towards themselves. Hurt people, hurt people. Coming into prison, especially San Quentin, gives them a place to stop. Luckily for us, the prison is located in this very liberal community. There's a lot of people that come through, almost as many volunteers as there are inmates. And one of the ways that my interfaith journey has really helped is that I began to see those 3 words at work: interconnection, which is a great lack of, disconnection, all over the place, and connection, which was my goal, to create more connection. And I began to see as the men take the various self-help programs there and actually get in touch with their own empathy and compassion. I've heard men who are 50, 60 years old saying they never even heard the word compassion growing up. They didn't know what empathy was until they heard a victim come in and speak his or her story. And then they found empathy. So connection is hard to come by. And what happens when you have a bunch of men living like monks in a monastery behind bars, coming into their heart space? What can be useful? And I thought, well, I think devotion can be useful. So I was able to start a devotional music program. It's still going strong 8 years later. In fact, where Susan, the Threshold Choir ladies were one of the first that I brought in, and I'm happy to say they're continuing to come in on a monthly basis to sing with the men, because when you sing together, your heart resonates together just like it did when we did our visualization. And so singing together, chanting together, and there is a culture there now growing in San Quentin of men who understand what devotion feels like, and they understand it doesn't need to be a denominational devotion. And it's quite beautiful. And it's extending out to include the men in green, the guards, who are often so hurt in their own way. So much PTSD from living, so much moral injury. If you're familiar with the term moral injury, so much moral injury with the guards for being in a profession that forces them to act in ways that are completely opposite of the connection. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the humanity that was at work there. I always tell the men, I give the prayer every year at the Day of Peace, the International Day of Peace there at San Quentin. And I always say, if we could telescope out and be above, out in outer space looking down on San Quentin, it would be glowing because of all the work that is done in San Quentin on an inner level. I want to share with you that one of the Buddhist activities that I've been doing lately is an ongoing study group studying a great Indian master, Shantideva's text, the Bodhicharya, which is the way of the Bodhisattva. And I thought, well, the men will probably like it, but we'll see how it goes. And we're now in our 8th or 9th month, and they cannot get enough of this text. It's fantastic. And it's a text that is all about how to live a life of interconnection. And I'm going to share with you a couple of the prayers. One that we open with, and one that we close with. I'm quite certain that you all are familiar with the term Bodhisattva. I like to translate the term warrior of the awakened heart. So for all of the men that I work with who are awakening to their own awakening heart, from them to you, I will share these prayers. The Bodhisattva is like the mightiest of warriors, but her enemies are not common foes of flesh and bone. His fight is with the inner delusions, the afflictions of self-cherishing and ego-grasping, those most terrible of demons that catch living beings in the snares of confusion and cause them forever to wander in pain, frustration, and sorrow. Her mission is to harm ignorance and delusion, never living beings. These he looks upon with kindness, patience, and empathy, cherishing them like a mother cherishes her only child. She is the real hero, calmly facing any hardship in order to bring peace, happiness, and liberation to the world. And that's actually a prayer by the 13th Dalai Lama. A prayer from Shantideva, which is how we start and end each session we do, with the Buddhist Sangha there. May I become at all times, both now and forever, a protector for those without protection, a guide for those who have lost their way, a ship for those with oceans to cross, a bridge for those with rivers to cross, a sanctuary for those in danger, a lamp for those without light, a place of refuge for those who lack shelter, and a servant to all in need. And I feel that prayer is one we could all live by, in being of service to all beings, in fostering connection and interconnection within ourselves and within our communities. Thank you.
So Father Tom is a Passionist priest from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who has ministered in the Diocese of Oakland since 1990. He is a graduate of St. John's University in New York City. After ordination to the Catholic priesthood in 1972, he served as religious superior and retreat director at Pittsburgh in New York City. He also served as chaplain of East Carolina University in Greenville, North Carolina, and Carlow University in Pittsburgh, where he established the Interfaith Center at Carlow University. He's also the founder of the Interfaith Peace Project of Contra Costa County, a home-based educational outreach providing introductions to the religions of the world. He's also director of the Interfaith Center in Antioch, which opened in October 2007. He conducts interfaith seminars for the School of Applied Theology in Oakland and the Chaplaincy Institute in Berkeley. He conducts adult education classes in interfaith spirituality and sacred scripture, and he ministers at Christ the King Passionate Retreat Center of Citrus Heights and serves on the board of directors for the Religious and Ecumenical Commission for the Catholic Diocese of Sacramento and the Interfaith Council of Contra Costa County, Please welcome Father Tom Bonacci.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yes. It's very good to be with you. I don't know about you, but there's 50,000 things in my head at the present moment. But what's in my heart is profound brokenness. Let me take you on a little journey for a few moments, if I may, simply because of where I am with you and in this place. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but a particular part of it. I grew up in what came to be known as Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. So we talk about interfaith relationships, interspiritual relationships. The first thing that hits my mind is the memory of where I come from. Because they refuse to take the violence as an answer, as a way of life. All over the world, there's people like yourselves who are emerging with a greater consciousness that our faith traditions cannot be locked down inside themselves for the sake of preserving what they think is their traditionalistic wisdom. They must be stepping stones to a greater consciousness. I must discover in my own faith tradition what invites me to self-transcendence, so I can walk with you as my companion on the road of life and not simply see you as the religious other that I tolerate or love because I find something I have in common with you. I must admit that begins to drive me crazy. Let's get together and find out what we have in common. And then after we discover what we have in common, I love you because you remind me of me. We also have to stop the idea that if we discover differences, we found a reason to be divisive, hurtful, or disagreeable. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I meet people who are different, I jump for joy. There's another way of looking at this. How wonderful it is to see somebody stand up and see violence as a context for peacemaking. I don't know about you, but I love to make peace when there's no violence. I love to make love when there's no hate. I love to have faith when there's no doubt. I love to have courage when there's no reason to. I'm not quite so sure if somebody shot me that the next word out of my mouth would be words of conciliation, strength, courage, vision, and light. What we have in common is not what we agree upon. What we have in common is our humanity. And it's about time that we discover that the word humane is the definition of the word human. One scripture puts it so very beautifully: created in the divine image and likeness. In the ancient traditions, you've even heard made in the likeness and grow in the image, or made in the image and grow in the likeness. When I discover how I can transcend myself, I discover anew that I do not have to walk on the road of life alone. I can walk with you. In the Catholic tradition, Pope Francis made an interesting remark. He made a remark about the Church, Catholic, that I think is insightful about religious people in general. We have to learn to walk with people, not on people. We have to discover that another human being is the most sacred experience you can have. To be in the presence of another person, for me, is to be in the presence of God. May I share with you a prayer of my faith tradition? And I believe that once we can self-transcend, we can access the faith traditions of the world as that wisdom that belongs to the human race. It's a prayer regarding the Spirit of God. And we can understand that word Spirit in many ways. All powerful and ever-living God, we thank you for your presence and action in the world. In the midst of conflict and division, we know it is you who turn our minds to thoughts of peace. Your Spirit changes our hearts and enemies begin to speak one to another. Those who are estranged join hands in friendship, and nations seek the way of peace together. Your Spirit is at work. When understanding puts an end to strife, when hatred is quenched by mercy, and vengeance gives way to forgiveness. For this, we should never cease to thank and praise you. And so, gracious one, Holy One, we thank and praise you. Bless us as you have ever blessed us, that we may be your loving presence in our broken world. Amen. God bless. Love you, Holy Community.
Let's have another round of appreciation. So just a reminder that this work of making peace, this work of doing interfaith or beyond the faith, from our faith, this is what the Marin Interfaith Council is about, and you're the Marin Interfaith Council. It's not me, it's not Janice, it's not our board of directors, it's all of you. As you live out your faith with radical love, with radical inclusion, by taking a stand for peace wherever you are, by being that loving presence, by doing the hard work of getting to know someone that you don't know, that's different, that you may not like, and to spend the time in relationship to get to see our common humanity, the humane experience. So invite all of you to continue to do that work today. That's what the Marin Interfaith Council is about, but that's really what you're about. That's your mission. That's who you are. That's who we all are in this world. So thank you for being part of that. I invite you to keep joining us in this ongoing work, either through the conversations that we'll have, and you can sign up on your sign-up sheet on the table to be part of that. Join us at our interfaith meditations. Our next one will be a week from today. It's always on the second Wednesday of the month at 5:30 at First Presbyterian. Is Khadijah still here? Where are you, Khadijah? Khadijah, you'll stand up. Oh, there you go. So Khadijah Hamsia, who's one of our board members from the Islamic Center of Mill Valley, will lead our time next week. We'll always have a prayer and meditation once a month, so join us 5:30 next Wednesday and every second Wednesday for that. And just a reminder also to join us at lovelivesandmarin.org and be part of that movement. And finally, just to pencil in on your calendars our Visionary Marin event tentative date. I think it's going to be this date, but we have a Sunday, November 17th. Pencil that in on your calendar and to join us for that as well. So we invite you to keep joining us as we celebrate faith, advocate justice, and build community. So I invite you, just as we depart today, just for a moment, coming back to the heart space that Reverend Susan Shannon brought us into, take a moment in silence just one moment in silence to notice what is present in your body, in your heart. What is reverberating in you and through you as you prepare to leave this place today? How might your own personal faith, spiritual journey be a stepping stone today for healing the world in one small way? And as you depart today, know that you are the change we've been waiting for. You are the hope we have longed for. You are the radical love which alone transforms fear and hate into peace. You are sacred life itself. Shine. Speak up. Stand up. Risk kindness. Be compassion. You are what the world needs. Go in peace and be who and what you truly